Black people are furious that not a single black juror was chosen for the trial of Karmelo Anthony, the 17-year-old who stabbed Austin Metcalf in the heart until he bled to death in front of his brother at a track meet in Texas. Why did they not find a single black juror? Well, could it have something to do with quotes like this? This is actually from someone who was being interviewed to potentially sit on that jury. And he says, "I don't know if I feel right putting a brother in jail," when asked about finding a black defendant guilty of murder. Other potential jurors said that he looked like a kid and they couldn't imagine putting him behind bars. Maybe that's why none of them ended up on the trial. Or what about a little quote like this? This is from an article in the Washington Times where a lawyer says that black jurors should refuse to convict black people accused of murdering white people. The consensus among black people, at least like this, is that it is more important to stay loyal to your race than it is to stand up for justice in your own country. And you would rather allow a murderer to walk free so your brother gets to stay out of jail. That's pathetic. This is nothing new. We saw the same exact thing happen with the O.J. Simpson trial, where quite famously we had a black and a white side that took sides in this case based strictly on the racial element of it. And there's, of course, this famous picture which shows how the joy and the disappointment in that verdict being read follows pretty clearly along racial lines. And later, we learn what we always knew, that the black jurors pretty much knew that he was guilty, but decided to acquit him anyway because he was black.
Do you think that they're members of the jury that voted to acquit OJ because of Rodney King?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
How many of you think felt that way?
Oh, probably 90% of us.
90%? Did you feel that way?
Yes.
That was payback.
Uh-huh.
You think that's right?
It's not really possible to coexist in a society with a group of people who throw justice out the window for the sake of their racial partisanship. And by the way, we have a very serious problem with the reliability of jury trials in this country, strictly because of black people. The whole point of a jury trial is to get an unbiased trial in front of your peers, people who are impartial, who can look at the facts of the case under the instructions of a judge and some lawyers to give you the best possible ruling, so that you're not ruled by the elites or the lawyers or the judges who arguably are not going to relate to you as much. That's the whole point. But what happens if you have an entire social class of people who have an ulterior motive much, much deeper than justice, and that's really tied to their racial identity? The whole point of a jury trial falls to pieces. They did a study in 2021 where they actually tested the racial bias of black people on juries, and the results were pretty bad. They made up a fictitious case where there's an 18-year-old starting point guard on a high school basketball team, and he's accused of criminal battery. And they have a group of white jurors and a group of black jurors, and they're all mixed together, and they're supposed to determine whether he's guilty or not guilty. They all get the same case. The only difference is some people are given a defendant named Bradley, and some people are given a defendant named Jamal. Pretty clear racial difference. And what they found was the white people, it says, there was no detectable racial bias among white people. They judged Jamal and Bradley guilty equal amounts of the time. But among black people, there was a relatively large favoring of Jamal over Bradley among black participants. It says in unweighted data, bias was 29 percentage points. That's pretty intense. 29 percentage points less likely to find Jamal guilty than Bradley. And then when you weighted the analysis, it came out to 33%. That's really bad. And then as far as sentence length goes, because that's also really important, the participants in the study were allowed to choose a sentence between 0 and 60-some months. They found that the bias was 8.7 months in the unweighted analysis and 9.4 months in weighted analysis. Do you realize what this means? This means that if you are unfortunate enough to be tried in a criminal court and you get a jury of your peers, allegedly, and yet because we live in a post-Hart-Celler world, we live in a world where a lot of people around us are of a different people than our own, if you get one of those juries, very likely you are 33% more likely to end up guilty just because you're being judged by black people. And then when it comes to sentencing, if you're unlucky enough to sit before a black judge, if the options are 0 to 60 months in jail, you are likely to get 9.4 additional months. That's 3/4 of a year in prison just because you happen to be sitting in front of a judge who's a different color skin than yours. This is not something that white people do. We don't. There's a lot of white people who dislike black people. Daily, I start to join that club. I don't hate black people at all. I don't. But stuff like this definitely makes it difficult to keep that conviction because they definitely hate us. They definitely do. That's the only way to figure out why this is the case. White people, when asked to judge other races, almost straight down the line, equal ratings for every race under heaven. It has been drilled into white people that no race is better than any other. We are all equal, and if there's any differences at all, it's our own race. It's the white people who are worse. And yet every other race under heaven, black, red, yellow, green, whatever, they all rank themselves first and foremost. And that's natural, and that's actually good. You should have an in-group preference. It's just white people who seem to have been deluded into thinking that that's not okay.